All right, y'all. Let me respectfully change this background because I don't want nothing too provocative for the background. I guess I'll use this one. Anywho, hey YouTube, this is the one and only Damian Moody. I also go by Cashmere Majesty or Red Riding Hood, and I'm back in with another live video. I'm back to doing my Cashmere Reads book reading. I don't think I titled it Cashmere Reads. Anyway, y'all get the damn point if y'all even watch my videos. Some of y'all don't. Bastards. Y'all don't be watching my videos. Y'all don't be catch at me. Y'all don't be doing nothing. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, I'm back again with another Cashmere Reads, and we are reading My Sister Tommie, The Real Tammi Terrell by Ludie Montgomery and Vicky Wright. This is what the book looks like. For anyone, this is the second expanded edition book with a foreword by Dionne Warwick, which I already read. Um, so we're going to get into some things and get into the life of Mrs. Tammi Terrell. Like I've been telling y'all, this book has plenty of pictures of Tammi Terrell throughout her life and her sister, family, friends, associates. I don't show the pictures. I just read the book. If y'all want to see the pictures, please feel free to get y'all a copy. I'm pretty sure it's on eBay, it's on Amazon, it's at your local bookstores. You might even find it at the free library if you're lucky. This chapter is chapter 11, This Whole Heart of Mine. I would finally visit the Motor City in 1966. Tommie's schedule continued to be hectic, but she sent me a plane ticket and I went to spend a week with her. That was a long break for Tommie. She was never in any one place for that long, unless she was performing, of course. I caught her shows in Detroit while I was there. I flew into Detroit, and when I arrived at the airport, David Ruffin of The Temptations was waiting there for me with a chauffeur limousine. I thought I was something. Am I too much or what? I asked myself. We drove through the city of Detroit and passed over the Detroit River. Tommie lived on the west side, on Dexter. We soon arrived in a predominantly African American neighborhood. The car came to an abrupt halt, and David opened the door for me to get out. There was a small two-story house with an enclosed porch. Tommie's apartment was on the second floor. Okay, so they just jumping into things because it didn't say what started the relationship, when did their relationship start, but we do know that Tammi Terrell dated David Ruffin and um she dated James Brown. Anybody else they say she dated, there's really not much confirmation. You get a lot more about her relationship with David Ruffin and James Brown than anybody else that people probably been saying she dated. That's a public figure. Anyway, the apartment was okay, much different than home. The living area was furnished in somewhat of a hippie 60s style with a furry rug under the glass coffee table. Underneath sat an octopus and formaldehyde floating lifelessly, a type of art piece that a type of art piece that shook the senses. The kitchen was small and was painted a bright yellow with matching curtains and placements. There was a vase of pretty daffodils sitting neatly in the center of the table. Next, there was a medium sized dining area in the sitting room that was ornamented with bearskin and leopard print rugs, in addition to fishnets that hung from the ceiling. Recently, they had the entire room painted black, and spears were hanging on the walls. Was this the room I was to sleep in? I wondered to myself. I headed down the hall to Tommie's bedroom. The color there was a deep blue. There was a king size bed, a chaise lounge, a dresser, and a chest. A painting of a black stallion hung directly over the bed. David loved horses. I thought about her place was cool. Oh, excuse me. My thought about her place was cool. An appropriate response considering my age. I noticed that Tommie's housekeeping skills had improved. Back home, she got out of so much work, and now that I wasn't there to do it, she had to clean her own house. Hot in Philly, she wouldn't even make her bed, but here, everything was neat and orderly. I later found out that Tommie, in fact, had hired help. A person came out to her place to do housework and laundry. Tommie was as clever as ever, and she was still getting out of it. People thought she was a great housekeeper and cook. Little did they know about her little secret. When the three of us, Tommie, David, and I ate a solid steak and baked potato David had prepared for dinner. I helped clean up after dinner, and then we listened to Tommie's reel to reel, which was very nice, by the way. We laughed and joked for hours. David was a nice guy, very funny, and with a definite charm. Tommie said she had to be in the studio the next day early, so I retired to my little room, and Tommie and David went to hers. I woke in the night and I looked in on Tommie. There she was fast asleep with her mouth wide open. David lay uninterrupted on the other side of the bed. Boy, I thought, what an awful looking twosome. I shut the door, tiptoed back to my temporary abode, and went fast asleep. I knew nothing of her relationship with David Ruffin prior to this visit. They began dating and living together fairly soon after she arrived in Detroit. I would soon learn that he meant everything to her. She was always saying David this or David that. My parents did not know of this living situation either. Just as she had been tight lipped regarding her career, she did not divulge this information to our parents. Tommie was in Detroit to work on her music. Her heart fell in love, so she adjusted to the situation at hand. The best way was to leave this little detail out as far as mother or father were concerned. Of course, they would eventually find out, but they first had to become accustomed to her living in another state. I feel I had to validate this for her now. Ned Ruffin was a very significant part of Tommie's life. It was a short time in the grand scheme of things, but for her, he was important. I personally do not know what you would call what they had, but for them, it was love. She was deeply in love with him. He meant the world to her. The next morning after I woke, I showered and took out my best outfit to wear. I put on matching shoes and purse. I pulled my hair back into a ponytail and applied a soft pink lipstick. Looking in the full mirror, I sighed, not bad. Tommie and I headed out to the studio. My bubble burst. Midtown USA Hitsville. I was so surprised. I blinked as we turned down West Grand Boulevard. A long block of little row houses seemed to stretch endlessly. I imagined we would be going to a much grander place, a high rise, with people buzzing and horns honking and traffic jams. I was only 15, so I had my sights set high for the vision of Motown. The street looked deserted and the houses were not inviting at all. I would discover that the houses had more appeal on the inside. Tommy took me around and introduced me to everyone. I met Miss Gory, Barry's mother, and other staff members, in addition to many other artists who were around Hitsville that day. I never did meet Pop Gordy, but I felt like I knew him because Tommy talked about him so much. She loved him and respected Pop very much. Tommy spoke very highly of Barry Gordy as well. She was very business oriented when she spoke of him to me. I sat quietly in the studio with Tommy. The studio had more equipment than I had ever seen in my life. Technicians were busy with buttons, and Clarence Paul was busy scolding some band members about being off key. People were buzzing in and out for some time. This was a busy little place. Tommy went into an enclosed booth and I heard her sing the same song repeatedly. Clarence would call out, "That's a cut." By the time her sessions were over, I was completely exhausted. Tommy told me that she did this all day when she wasn't on the road. Barry Gordy insisted that his artists be in the studio when they were in Detroit. The next thing Tommy and I did was attend finishing class. Motown had an artist development department, which is where Charlie Atkins and Maxine Powell uh, would groom the artists for the stage and their public performances. The women of Motown were instructed how to sit, walk, talk, and stand elegantly. The women were shown how to become proper ladies at all times. Let's not forget to smile at any cause let's not forget to smile at any cost. I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. At the end of this busy day, I was totally drained. Tommy did this all the time. She told me that tomorrow would be the same, except after her session in the studio, we would go to dance classes. It was fun to see this aspect of Motown. These lessons were necessary and were definitely a big part of the success of most of the artists. The package is just as important as the music. Tommy took all of this so religiously, as much as she had with ballet and piano lessons when we were kids. This was her life. During my stay in Detroit, Tommy had a small get together at her apartment. I would see my sweetheart, Stevie Wonder. He and I got to know each other a little better. I consider him my first little boyfriend in puppy love. We never got to the necking part, but I had a soft spot for him then, and I still do. Sometimes people just affect you that way. My memories of the time shared with him were fine and good ones. Other people who were at Tommie's little party that night were all of the Temptations and Miss Florence Ballard. We all laughed and talked all night. It wasn't an exceptionally late night. Everyone had to be up early the next day for the obligations at the studio, etc. I remember I went to the club with Tommy and David. She was blowing him kisses and mouthing "I love you." She and I had gone shopping earlier that day, and she brought another painting of a beautiful horse for her apartment. It's unclear to me if Tommy knew he was married at this time. I know she would find out later, and there would soon be problems in the beginning of the end of their relationship. I know Tommy was David's counterpart, and what I mean by this is she charged him. She was also a North Philly girl who could hold her own. She did not subject herself to him in the least. She loved him, and I know that she stood up to him if ever there was a conflict. That was part of the fire and passion that existed between them. Very deep human beings and complex souls. She understood him unequ- unequivocally. I did not care for the complexities of their love affair. After all, it was none of my business. I thought he was a congenial guy, but I didn't think he was a good boyfriend for her. I knew what she needed in a partner, although I was younger. Tommie never had to look far to get a man's attention. This was a situation where she wanted David's attention, and it was a constant battle to keep vying for it. Considering they were sex symbols, very popular and very busy, they both had numerous people interested in them, and that helped to create the drama and insecurity they each had internalized when it came to relationships. The outside influences were there always, never ceasing, in addition to the tug of war that involved each of their careers. Somehow I believe David had painful issues as well and was desperately trying to escape them. I know my sister's life well enough to know what was going on with her. She simply needed more than he could give, and she never had to share anyone. On one occasion, Tommy and I would go see a Temptation show. David was definitely a great entertainer. On that night, I remember they gave me my first and only joint. I never smoked marijuana before, and I did not like how it made me feel. I remember David laughing and feeling good and just being ridiculous. I laughed and laughed at him. I would never smoke pot again. I think anyone smoked it. Excuse me. I think everyone smoked in the '60s. Daddy would have killed Tommy for doing that, and would have gotten mad at both of them for giving it to me. I never told my father about this. I can tell you that I like David I mean, more when he was having fun. I was around him on many other occasions. I enjoyed the week I spent in Detroit with my sister. Okay. How long is this chapter? Because y'all know I'll just read one chapter because I don't like reading for too long. They got a lot of pictures in this book. Something that went unnoticed at this time by our family was Sami's headaches. Many people who had spoken of witnessing the manifestation of her headaches would talk about it in later years. Since we were not around her as much, we did not see the seriousness of the devastation that was unfolding regarding her health. We had obviously known of the headaches when she was younger, but now she stayed so busy, and this wasn't something that she complained about to anyone or discussed. Her stress level had escalated dramatically. We were away from her more now than ever before. Only those who may have been around her would know she had them, and that they had continued for her in Detroit. Mother would soon be having a relapse as well. I sacrificed even more to support my mother emotionally, whereas Tommy was spread so thin in her life, she was able to be there for mommy in a different way. She was able to bring some joy to mom through her music. Tommy would provide an escape for mother because financially she could do things for her that would help keep her mind off her own excruciating headaches. She could whisk her away on a trip or make any moment in Terry worries disappear. The both of us were there for mommy when she began having headaches again. This would be a year that Tommy would meet her first. Would meet her best friend Dolores. Dolores became a part of our family, and I would meet her a little later when she would come to Philly. Tommy and Dolores were like sisters. Dolores recalls the first time she met my sister. Hold on. I met Tommy in nine. I mean, excuse me. I met Tammy in 1966. She wasn't here in Detroit very long at all. I had known David a while. I was at a party at David's house. He and I were never involved or anything like that. We were friends. I was very naive, nice, and just a sweet person. He mentioned to me that he would be in town a while and asked me to pick him up some sheets for a king size bed. He asked me to bring them by the apartment. Okay. I went to the store and brought some sheets. I went over to drop them off at the apartment and Tammy answered the door. I had no idea who she was. I hadn't a clue. I told her that David asked me to bring these by and could you make sure he gets them? She said sure, and I said thank you and bye. I called a few days later to see if David got the sheets I left for him, and I wanted my money too. Tammy answered the phone. I asked if he got the sheets, and heck, I wanted him to pay me for the sheets. She said, "Do you know who I am?" Well, I had since found out she was Timmy Terrell. She told me that she thought I should know that David was her man. I said, well, I did not know that. Then she said, do you know the only reason I ass whoop your ass? Huh? Then she said, do you know the only reason I did not ass whip your ass? I said, no. She replied, it's because you seem like such a sweet and nice girl. You seem so sweet that I just didn't have it in me. All of the women wanted David, and were always trying to get to him. She told me that I was the first person to come by her house who treated her with respect. She said that women came by all the time and called her names and would pick fights with her. She didn't get the respect she deserved, and I gave that to her from day one. The rest of them would begin calling her names because I was so nice. I think I blew her mind. We began talking all the time and became friends. That's how I met Timmy Terrell. We became the best of friends. I had my mother in stitches when I told her that story. They lived on Dexter, and one day when David came home, he saw us together. Tammy said, "This is Cookie." He said, "Yeah, I know." And she said, "I like her." David and I became like brother and sister. Tammy trusts me in friendship, and I was close to both of them. One time he got sick when she was out of town. She would call me and tell me to go make sure he was eating right. I fed him baby food. I went over to on my lunch break to take care of him. She cared a lot about him and had concern for him. When she and David were away from each other, I believe she thought one day they would work it out. She just wasn't. He just wasn't where she was mentally. He didn't know how to be with her or treat her. Oh, Jesus. I think he was close to being the love of his life, but he was also the type who loved women. Dad wasn't ready for the kind of love Timmy gave. I would say it was as close to love as he could get. They were both stubborn in a way, being career driven people. She and David would ride the motorcycle together. She told me she fell off of it one time. He was wild on the bike and clumsy at times, and she got mad because he made her fall off. She was quite a lady and not a wimpy person at all. She had two sides. She had her entertainer side and she had her everyday folk side. She would tell people when she introduced me that I was her good influence, and she would tell them that she was my bad influence. I was an ordinary friend to Tammy. When I first met her, I worked at a church credit union. Then I worked at a bank. I was just plain old people for her. She was friends with David's family, including Jimmy and Shirley Ruffin. I didn't mingle much with her entertainment friends. I was a normal friend for her. One time I went with Tammy to the Franklin home where she visited Aretha and her sisters. We sat along, excuse me, we just got along so great. She was crazy and fun. Tammy spent a lot of time with me and my family. She even met my fiance and told me to dump him. She was a dear and true friend, and she was someone I could tell all of my secrets to. The bottom line is that entertainers are just people and they want to be treated with respect. I was not someone who was friends with her because of her fame. She was sweet. She was street smart, and she was in an industry where she had to grow up fast so she could hold her own. Our friendship was solid, and it meant more to me to have that than anything. She treated me like a sister, and I consider her my sister. My friends who call me Cookie are my real friends. I laugh about this later, and sometimes I wonder if Timmy even knew what my first name was. I had a Volkswagen, and David would borrow it. My parents would crack up when he got out of the car. He was so tall and lanky, and he didn't fit in it. Timmy didn't have a car when I knew her. She and I would ride around in my Volkswagen. People here knew she and I were friends. Living in Detroit, I would call all of the other. Living in Detroit, what? I would hear all of the stuff about her. I didn't even go there with people. I did not feel I had to justify it. I knew her better than any of the people who were talking about her or inquiring about her. Sadly, some people really like to believe the words and they live and breathe for the negative. That's what she had around her, and unfortunately, it was never corrected. The true friends who knew her did not believe those rumors, and her true friends did not talk about her. Some things were just scandalous and false. We knew her and we knew the truth. If Ludie was not right in this book, I would never have shared my stories with anyone in my lifetime. Cousin Grace adds this about Tommie and David. Tommie spoke her mind, and I don't think she was a wimp when it came to standing up to men. She loved him a lot, and she called me once from Detroit when she was a little sad. He just did not know how to be with her, and she wanted that to work out so badly. That wasn't love on his part, the way he treated her. She knew of his unfaithfulness. She would find him with other women. They were both very passionate people. You may say that I do not know all of my sister's life experiences, but that doesn't change who she was. You know a person by their heart, and her time in Detroit did not change her heart. I did not know her less just because we were away from each other for a brief time. We all went to Detroit, myself, mother, and father too. When we would go to see her, whenever she was performing in New Jersey, Philly, or New York, I shared more of my life with her than I spent without her. In September, Tammi would perform at the Roots Hotel in Detroit with the Miracles. Thank goodness there is a recording of this marvelous event where she sang a medley of her own song, some standards, and did a tribute to the women who were a big influence in her career. The songs she included were by the Supremes, Aretha Franklin, and Sarah Vaughan. I love this recording because you really hear Tommie's stage persona coming through. In November, she played the Grand the Tony Grand again, opening for the Temptations. Later in the month, Tommie recorded My Heart, and that's how it is since you've been gone. And by the year's end, she was wrapping up her first full year of living in Detroit. She performed holiday shows in December. What was ahead for her was the most important and magical era of her musical career. Okay, so I guess I ain't really talk much about her relationship with David Ruffin, unless it's more that I'm just not reading. So that was the end of that chapter, because I don't feel like reading anymore. Y'all know I only read like one chapter. So yeah, that was My Sister Tommie, The Real Tammi Terrell by Ludie Montgomery and Vicky Wright. Please feel free to get the book. I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon, eBay, wherever you can find books at. I'm pretty sure they got it. Um, and yeah, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, be notified, and I'll get back to you on the next video.